18 apples, 5.5 pounds of almonds, a half cup of salt, 6 quarts of odorless and tasteless liquid, 100 micrograms of dart frog secretions, and 700 thousandths of a milligram of the substance contained in this jar. So, what do all these things have in common? The common thing is that they're all deadly to humans. We all think of a poison as a glass vial or a container with a skull painted on it. But most poisons have no warning signs on them. Poisons live on the trees in your garden, in the air, and in the water. But if you look closely, you can even find them in carpets, clothes, subway rails, packages, and even the faces on some of you guys watching this video. These hidden substances are called forever chemicals. This is because they don't break down in the environment. There are over 4,000 of them, and they all have miraculous properties due to the fact that they contain fluorine. What are these amazing things, you wonder? You don't need to look far. Go to your kitchen and find a Teflon frying pan. In Teflon, as well as in other forever chemicals, fluorine atoms are joined with carbon so tightly that the chemicals become incredibly resistant to heat, moisture, and dirt. This is the reason Teflon was first used in the making of the nuclear bomb. They needed a coating capable of holding the extremely corrosive uranium compound, which was constantly trying to go off, eat away the lab, or kill the scientists. So they came up with Teflon. But Teflon is a fairly harmless forever chemical. Much more dangerous chemicals are those found in waterproof cosmetics. Look, it doesn't even wash off when you dive in, but it also poisons you through your pores and tear ducts. Animals influenced by such chemicals have cancer and fetal malformations. There are suggestions that they do the same to us, as they're contained in our water supply, our food, and in our bodies. There's nothing we can do about it, unfortunately, just deal with the fact that the world is a very toxic place. And I wish you wouldn't get confused about the terms. And it's not for nothing that we consulted with Alexey Vodivozov, a super experienced toxicologist. And here's what we learned. If a living creature like a plant, animal, or a microbe has produced a molecule which can harm another living creature, this molecule gets called a toxin. While poisons are any substances, tiny doses of which cause poisoning. Whether it's a substance from an animal's fangs, liquid for cleaning pipes, purchased cockroach poison, they're all poisons. And if you add to poison the substances harmful to the general population and polluting the environment, such as forever chemicals or exhaust fumes, you will end up getting the mixture forming the largest group of harmful crap called toxicants. They are substances that harm living creatures on a molecular level. But we're not at a science conference, are we? So for comfort, let's use poison for any toxic thing. Great. But how do you compare the toxicity of different things such as nicotine, black mamba venom, and arsenic? At first glance, it's really easy. Take a box of rats and give them poison, a little at a time, in the form of food, injection, or air, and then just wait. Forgive me if it sounded cynical, but we're well aware. And we won't hide the fact that it's not us who are cynical, it's the science that's cynical. The dose causing the death of half of the innocent animals is called the semi-lethal dose, or LD50. The LD50 is measured in the amount of poison per pound of body weight. But there's a problem when rendering this parameter from rodents to humans. Different species have different biochemistry too. And so the lethal amount of the substance will be different. For example, half of the rats die from 8 milligrams of cyanide per pound of body weight. Of course, humans have never been objects to such brutal experiments, but as the known cases of poisoning show, for humans, LD50 is 3 milligrams of cyanide per pound of body weight. So humans are 2.5 times more sensitive to cyanide than rats. In the movies, spies die within seconds of biting into a vial of cyanide. There's nothing more dangerous than cyanide, right? Movies have drummed this into our heads because it's a powerful movie cliche. But I want to change the way you think about poisons. Because there's a variety of other, more dangerous poisons. And they kill in the most sophisticated ways. Hemotoxins from snake venom crumble blood cells into dust, literally melt blood vessels, and can make a victim bleed from the inside out. Surprisingly, these poisons only work when taken directly into the bloodstream. Once in the stomach, they're just digested. Well, if the stomach doesn't have any wounds, other poisons can enter the body from food. Cardiotoxins cause heart attacks or even heart muscle death. Nephrotoxins like mercury salts hit the kidneys from the inside. And hepatotoxins like those from death cap can make liver cells explode. But there are also neurotoxins. It's enough for them to contact the body by any means, no matter whether it's inside the body or just right on the skin. They'll trigger a blackout of the entire nervous system. I mean, cut off the mind-body connection. And there may be two outcomes. Either the respiratory muscles will be paralyzed and the person will die, as from the poison of curare, used by the natives to smear their arrows, or the muscles, on the contrary, will be 100% activated and will shake in convulsions, as from a nerve agent poisoning, Novichok. But the man will still die. Finally, some of the most invisible killers, genotoxins. They break DNA strands, causing tumors, or in the case of one old drug, lead to producing deformed offspring. So which of these poisons do you consider the worst? I know. The ones you haven't heard of and that you aren't prepared for. In this video, I will touch on dozens of things that can kill. Not so that any of you get hurt, but so that you can survive in this toxic world. Forewarned is forearmed. Now you'll find out if it's true that every living thing in Australia wants to kill you. Why do plants need poison? What's the price for a liter of the most expensive liquid on the planet? Where you may find the deadliest creature on Earth and on water. How sugar saves from cyanide. What color wallpaper kills people. Who accidentally poisoned the most people in history. What poisonous critter can cure cancer. What's so dangerous about Novichok, and how not to get killed by a cucumber. Yup, Jan. In every home you can find a very dangerous substance. Here it is, the main component of acid rain. In gaseous form, it causes severe burns. And when ingested in large quantities, it causes vomiting, increased sweating, suffocation, and even death. Mad thing. Yeah, I'm drinking this to you. Never face things mentioned. It was just usual water. Respect to those who figured it out. Yes, water can be toxic. For a person weighing 154 pounds to drink 6.5 liters of water is a red line. Because water, in that amount, can over-dilute the electrolytes carrying signals between neurons. Jennifer Strange, a mother of 3, participated in a water drinking contest to win a Wii for her children. She drank almost 6 liters in one gulp. And guess what happened? Yes. Here she's on the phone complaining her head hurts, and 6 hours after the contest, Jennifer died of brain nerve cell swelling and a lack of sodium, and an important electrolyte. Sodium was diluted with water. Yes, water in excessive amounts can kill you, while vomiting from too much water may not happen. Doctors recommend drinking no more than 1 liter per hour. That's the amount of water that your kidneys can take in and keep from flooding your heart and your brain cells. The athletes who lose a lot of fluid and then replenish it in a rush drink special isotonics like Powerade enriched with electrolytes. Drinking a lot of water is not recommended, as you risk getting poisoned. And maybe you're also not recommended to breathe much, not to get poisoned by the air. Yes, you're not recommended to breathe too much air. For your own safety, as they say. If you're a diver, a premature baby in an incubator, or a person with an oxygen mask in the hospital room, you are at risk. At the risk of oxygen poisoning. Because in all of these cases, you get an increased concentration of oxygen at high pressure. Like divers get it from the nitrox breathing mix, where the share of oxygen is not the normal 21%, but the abnormal 36%. Or like this dude during the test. Very active ions called superoxides overwhelm every cell in his body, oxidize everything there, and destroy the cell membrane. And its insides just fall out, like from a torn bag. If not get the blood pressure back to normal, the person dies. So poisons are much closer than you thought. Yes, things that are supposed to help our body can break it. Since we were kids, we've been told that vitamins are good for us. We had to eat those disgusting fish oil or beef liver, for example. Or cod liver, that's even worse, because they contain vitamin A. But here's a story I don't think your parents ever told you. Explorers Douglas Mawson and Xavier Mertz had a hard time moving through Antarctica in 1913. They ran out of supplies, so they were forced to eat their dogs. Mawson ended up severely poisoned and Mertz died. According to the main version, the reason is an overdose of vitamin A, which is abundant in dog liver. The same thing happens if you eat polar bear liver, deer liver, or giblets of barracuda fish. Somewhat ironically, the excess vitamin A from dog liver hits your liver cells, breaking down their internal energy sources, the mitochondria. You'll probably say, "Thank you, Jan, I will definitely give up eating barracuda liver and throw the dog liver out of the fridge." But seriously, you may get sick not only from such exotic food. Even your kitchen may be full of dangers. Yes, red beans in raw or undercooked form contain lectin, which in large doses glues blood cells together. Just 5 beans will cause severe vomiting and diarrhea, and more will send you to the hospital. And here are potatoes with green peel. It contains solanine, causing bleeding in the stomach. Therefore, eating green potatoes is not recommended. And of course, the usual table salt. While death occurs at an average dose of half a cup, and for children even less, the salt gets too much sodium into the blood and it pulls all the water out of the cells in the bloodstream. It's like poisoning by water, but in reverse. There are also foods that are safe for you, but not safe for the other inhabitants of your house. For example, a bar of dark chocolate can kill a dog weighing 22 pounds. A 3.5-pound chocolate bar can kill a dog. A 22-pound dog, just knock it out. That's because it contains a lot of theobromine, which causes poisoning among dogs. So don't feed your pets chocolate, neither milk nor black, even if they plead with you. Give paws and wag their tails. Perform all your commands and pretend to die without chocolate. Do not do that. I recommend you check out this list. You might not realize it, but some of your houseplants may be deadly to animals if they chew on them, so it's better to secure yourself. Sometimes you might get poisoned by something not obviously dangerous. Living creatures are perfectly capable of producing substances deadly to themselves inside their bodies. What do they need for that? An average person needs 18 apples, or more precisely, their insides. The seeds of apples, peaches, and other fruits contain a harmless substance called amygdalin. But when digested in the stomach, it turns into cyanide. Yes, it sounds very scary, but accidentally poisoning yourself with it is extremely difficult. After all, a lethal dose is only produced if you eat at least 150 apple seeds. That's the amount contained in 18 apples. But as it's said, do not try this at home. Here is a tab for you. Even bigger, much bigger. Just so you remember it. The same danger is typical of almonds, especially the wild and bitter ones. Just 50 nuts can kill an adult, as it contains a dose of cyanide enough for that, while 5 to 10 of such nuts are capable of killing a child. Although the amount of sweet almonds we buy in stores should be 40 times more, this much. But apples and almonds aren't to blame for everything. You see, the only way that they can be dangerous is if you're an idiot and decided to eat 18 stumps or 5.5 pounds of almonds. Yes, it wasn't the apple tree's fault, unlike other plants we might call natural-born killers. They've been honing their killing skills for millions of years. And if you want to see 100 of them in one place at once, take a ticket to England. Yeah, if you can, of course. Precisely to this place with poison in its name. This place is the Alnwick Garden, the most toxic place on the planet. The garden's inhabitants are 100 plant species deadly to humans, so touching anything here without a hazmat suit is like walking into a cage with sleeping lions. Some plants are even dangerous to smell. For instance, henbane, the fumes of which constantly make visitors faint. There's even a bench right next to it. Look, please take a seat if you suddenly feel like crap in our fabulous garden. Listing all the plants in this garden is, like opening a hitman's suitcase. For example, the cherry laurel produces cyanide, and this is aconite. A piece of its root in a well can poison an entire village. Several berries of this plant, called belladonna, can kill a child. Belladonna is Italian for a beautiful woman. But why do they call it that? Because once upon a time in Venice, women used to take its berries and bury the poisonous juices in their eyes, which would dilate the pupils and make their eyes more beautiful. Thus, it became much easier to ogle the suitors at balls, or celebrations. The funny thing is that we're still using this poisonous substance nowadays. We call it atropine. When your ophthalmologist wants to get a proper look at your eye fundus, he puts atropine in your eyes. In fact, he just drips poison. But the most dangerous thing you can find in this British garden surpasses cyanide in toxicity by hundreds of times, and it's produced by this unsightly plant, the castor plant, with its seeds containing ricin. There is no effective treatment for ricin poisoning. And if all residues of the substance are eliminated from the body, the damaged tissues will not regenerate completely anyways. That's why ricin is so popular among murderers, and for a very long time. Traces of the extract from castor oil seeds were found on a thin wooden stick, which, according to scientists, was used to inject the poison 24,000 years ago. Nowadays, letters of happiness with ricin have even been used to scare US government officials, including Trump personally. The death of Bulgarian writer Georgy Markov, who constantly criticized the communist government, was documented as one from a ricin-laced umbrella. A passerby accidentally poked him with the umbrella point, and in doing so implanted into the writer's leg a tricky capsule of poison less than 2 millimeters. What do we need such poisons for? Obviously, to work noiselessly and dust-free, as it's said. But the question is, what do the plants themselves need such powerful poisons for? Do they have a grand plan to exterminate all life? The most obvious reason is to keep from being eaten by herbivorous insect parasites. At the same time, the plant decides, for itself, what and when can be eaten. For example, if the plant doesn't need the leaves to be eaten, it applies poison to the leaves. Or for example, if in April a plant needs the seeds from its fruit scattered by animals around the area to propagate, its fruits will be poisonous during all the months except April, when they will be safe. But sometimes things are much trickier. For example, the toxic plants with bright fruits warn land animals, "You'd rather not harvest my fruits." Birds, on their turn, can see such berries from above, but they won't get killed by them. They'll just digest it in their stomachs and get the seeds falling out with the droppings somewhere. But can we go any further? Yes, we can. Toxins sometimes cause constipation, to keep the seed inside the animal longer and make the animal carry it as far as possible. And sometimes they act the opposite as a laxative so that the seed doesn't have time to get digested and comes out of the anus in one piece. Yeah, that's kinda smart shit. Literally dictates when and where to poo. That's why you shouldn't take every beautiful berry in your mouth, because who knows if it's bright colored to make you eat it or prevent you from eating it. It's nothing but a lottery for humans. And once it was played by Chris McCandless, whose diary was taken as a basis for the movie Into the Wild. Attention, spoiler alert. So in a burst of rebellion and self-discovery, he decided to single-handedly conquer Alaska without a map. He was doing pretty well, already beginning to find his way home. But one day, he wrote in his diary, "Beautiful blue berries." He began to eat them, thinking they were wild potato roots, but then realized with horror that he had mistaken them for another poisonous plant. The toxins led to exhaustion, and Chris never left his old bus again. Why do you think that you feel bitter? Because it's our natural detector of dangerous food. Yes, most plant poisons taste just as bitter. Our DNA mutation brought us the ability to taste that bitter, so we can enjoy Schweppes, bitter chocolate, and coffee. Nice. Those who still live close to nature, for example, the tribes of Africa, still don't understand why we love these bitter products. These are the coffee plantation workers. And now, for the first time, they taste the bitter coffee they grow by themselves. Their natural reflexes told them to spit it out. Bitter tastes dangerous, remember that. But many poisons can't be distinguished by taste and smell. They just gradually knock people off of their feet, one by one. In 1956, in the Japanese town of Minamata, people started to suffer from a strange disease. They lost their vision, lost their minds, and had their limbs numbing or shaking like in an epileptic episode. At first, they supposed it was a new virus, but then they noticed the same symptoms among the cats living near the port, and even dubbed the disease dancing cat fever. It took a long time for the Japanese to realize that all the victims had been eating fish. It didn't produce the poison itself, but accumulated it over time through food. This poison turned out to be a compound of methylmercury, which the fertilizer plant was dumping into the bay. Mercury has been scaring us since childhood. Like if you break a thermometer, the whole family will be poisoned. But pure mercury, when touched with your hand or even swallowed, will not cause much harm. Meanwhile, its vapors and compounds like methyl mercury act as a strong neurotoxin. Mercury belongs to a separate group of poisons, heavy metals. Here are the most dangerous of them all. Poisoning with them is different, for example, from a snake bite. The thing is that the animal toxins kill in a few hours or minutes, while heavy metals accumulate gradually and accumulate there during a long period of time. A person feels some kind of malaise, right? But blames it on something else. That's why, for centuries, people used to add heavy metals everywhere, not feeling any symptoms and having no idea where the trouble was coming from. In ancient Rome, people were comfortably sweetening their food with lead sugar. This is a product of grape juice, which received a lead from the containers where the juice was brewed. Lead was also used to make dishes, water pipes, paint, and even cosmetics. Lead whitewash was applied to Roman women to lighten their faces, and lead oxide was applied as a blush. This was popular even during the era of the Renaissance. And here's an interesting question: why are heavy metals bad for the human body? Because, in terms of chemistry, they fit perfectly with our enzymes. They're composed the same way. Heavy metals cling to enzymes as lockpicks to locks. They shut enzymes down, turning them into useless junk, or replacing useful chemical elements. For example, lead displaces from our biochemistry good calcium, which helps transmit nerve impulses. In addition, heavy metals interfere with the creation of proteins. They break the DNA strand and cause cancer. Here's a more recent example. In the 19th century, people widely used bright dyes with arsenic, such as Paris green. They used it to dye food, dresses, toys, and wallpapers. Except that the ladies in those green dresses fainted, children died in rooms with green wallpapers, and people working with that paint got covered with sores from their fingers to their genitals. At this point, I want to turn to those who love the phrase, "In the past, the grass was greener and everything was more natural." No, guys, let's agree. In the past, everything was less studied. In the 1950s, one of the lead compounds was added to gasoline to increase the octane rating, which at the same time increased the lead content in the blood of tens of millions of people. It was initiated by the chemist Thomas Midgley. By a strange coincidence, it was this man who came up with the idea of adding Freon to refrigerators. Thus, he single-handedly did the most damage to the atmosphere, destroying the ozone layer with Freon and simultaneously poisoning the most people in history. And here's the irony. Thomas himself died from his own inventions. He got strangled by the homemade rope that helped him get out of bed. When adding lead to fuel was banned, the annual death toll decreased by 1.2 million people. What conclusion can we draw from this? We have the upper hand in exterminating ourselves. Yeah, that's the conclusion. And who comes after us? You know them well. They're snakes. They kill 138,000 people and cripple 400,000 people every year. And now attention to those who have arachnophobia and herpetophobia. Further, you'll see a lot of footage of snakes and spiders. And it's an important part of the video, so we'll show and discuss them. But if you can't stand them, just admit. You've watched Spider-Man and haven't been scared of anything. So let's keep going. But if you're still too scared, leave the snakes in the comments in the amount which would equal your fear rate. With spiders, do the same. Let's kick the snakes and spiders' asses. Yeah, that's the stuff. So speaking about snake venom, we're imagining a single substance, right? But that's not what it is. In fact, it's a cocktail of toxins. One snake can have 150 of them, and each one harms the body in a different way. Some invade nerve cells, some shut down muscles, and some destroy the blood, turning it into jelly. Look at this process reproduced in the lab conditions. Drop 3 or 4 drops of poison into the blood, stir for a few minutes, and that's it. The blood jelly can be served. Snakes make the blood literally freeze in the veins. But why would they do that? Why not stay friends, you probably think. It allows them to start the process of digestion even before getting the food inside their stomach. It means the victim, when getting into the stomach of the snake, is already partially digested. What a clever move, huh? So snakes, they need poison in order to hunt. Well, actually, it's not the only reason. In fact, animals need venom not only to attack, but also to self-defend. For example, bombardier beetles shoot a stream of toxins heated to 212 degrees right out of their asses. This is the boiling point of water, by the way. This principle is similar to a rocket. When threatened, two chemicals from two different chambers mix and boom, spark. The acrid ass toxin with a loud pop scares predators away or even kills them if they're too weak. The pit vipers use their venom to protect themselves from possums. Yes, those cutest looking animals whom you may feed bananas at home. In the wild would say to you, "Piss off, asshole." Yes, possums eat snakes, and they don't care about the poisons at all. They are immune to them. We all need to understand that humans are not part of the poisonous snake's diet. Snakes don't care about humans at all. The main thing is just stay away. Snakes bite only those who abuse their comfort zone. Take, for example, the record holder for venom toxicity, inland tapon, living in Australia, whose bite carries enough venom to kill 100 people. 8 out of the 10 bitten people are guaranteed to die if not helped by medics. At the same time, tapon is very humble, lives in the desert, and bites only those who dared to get this close to it. Inland tapon is not aggressive. So the longest list of victims belongs not to him, but to snakes with less toxic venom. They're called the Big Four. The saw-scaled viper, the chain viper, the Indian crate, and the Indian cobra. In full force, this four may be found in India, so the most often cases of death from snake bites occur among Indians. That's because they have a tradition of walking barefoot in the rural areas inhabited by these snakes. It makes sense. They're extremely abundant in the rainy season, so peasants die in droves at that time. Yes, Indians have medicine, but not all of them. Snakes are thought to consciously adjust the amount of venom they want to inject into their prey, because the venom is a really valuable resource to them, which takes a lot of energy and substance to produce. So the animal will assess the size and the type of prey, for example, whether it's land-based or flying, and how fiercely it resists or attacks. And only after that, it measures out the right amount of venom. So when you hold its tail like this, be sure it won't spare any venom for you. But if you've already been bitten, it's useless to suck the venom out. It's an urban legend, and it won't work. I mean, you can suck the blood, but you can't remove any poison from it and reduce its concentration. So, don't be a sucker. I've always wanted to say that. Been waiting for a legitimate moment. And don't pour urine all over the bite, but treat it all with antiseptic. Put a non-pressurizing bandage on it to keep the infection out and call an ambulance. But in the case of the most venomous animals, first aid may be useless. No matter whether you suck the venom out or not, it doesn't have any sense. You're just stuck in this battle with nature. And it's not just snakes. Who are they? The most venomous creatures on the planet. How to determine the winner? You can, of course, put poisonous creatures in a box and see who stays alive, but it's more correct to evaluate the dry facts: the toxicity of the poison, its dose, and speed of action. Here, for example, is the most poisonous spider in the world, the Sydney funnel. Yes, he's also from Australia. Its venom is 60 times stronger than cyanide. Once it lurks in your shoe, say goodbye to your life. But it inhabits quite a small area. Its venom leads to death in 1 to 2 hours, and local doctors already know how to treat it. In addition, both it and the most venomous scorpion, the Indian red scorpion, kill mostly children. Adults have a chance to survive. I wouldn't call them professional killers, by the way. In this experiment, there's no winner. The snake flees the deck in a panic, taking its millipede girlfriend with it, and the spider comes out to breathe and calm down. But who could be better than them? You'll never guess. It's a golden poison frog. Sounds menacing. Yes, definitely. Let's see how many fangs and stings it has, at least. It's actually this little frog from Colombia. Its skin secretes batrachotoxin, which is a toxic steroidal alkaloid. It's not even necessary to lick the frog. It's enough to just touch it to knock your heart out of your nervous system in 10 minutes. South American Indians used to smear its poison on their hunting darts. The golden poison frog is also known as the golden dart frog, or Philobotys terribilis. It's like terrible, but terribilis. And agree, it seems like it's called so for a reason. To us, Philobotys terribilis is the most dangerous, venomous creature on land. It's the champion of the world of land killers. But it doesn't produce poison itself. It simply devours poisonous insects and accumulates this poison in itself. Those insects are also part of the diet of this bird named pitahoy. It's one of the few poisonous birds on the planet. The batrachotoxin seeps into its skin, and if you hold a pitahoy for a while, your skin will start numbing, but the dose of the toxin will not be lethal. But to find an absolute champion in the whole world, we have to go back to Australia for a bit, yes, and sail a little bit offshore. There you'll find Australian box jelly. The venom of these jellyfish is not the strongest, only 2,000 times more powerful than cyanide, but it's the fastest acting. If a tentacle goes over a large area of your skin, your heart stops in 5 minutes. And if you want to swim near the bottom of the same area, beware of the bluish lights. They're signs of the blue-ringed octopus's latest warning. Something like, "Listen, you swam into the wrong cove." And please, never grab it as this woman did. I guess she barely could post this video on TikTok. Why? Because if you pinch this octopus, it'll sting you with tetrodotoxin, a poison that knocks out your nervous system and can paralyze your body right in the water. Tetrodotoxin is 1,000 times more poisonous than cyanide. To compare, a drop of water is 50 milligrams. The dose of tetrodotoxin needed to kill an adult is 2 milligrams. But you can die from it not swimming in Australia. It's enough to just eat it in a restaurant. Pufferfish. This is a favorite dish of the Japanese citizens and tourists who want to tickle their nerves. Will it delight or kill? That depends only on the hand skills of the chef. The most important thing is not to touch and carefully remove the organs, liver, ovaries, and intestines, as they're the source of tetrodotoxin. It can also get into the fish skin, which dolphins take advantage of. They jam the fish in their mouths and scurry around the ocean. A small dose of tetrodotoxin makes dolphins plunge into a dolphin high. But we can't blame the blue-ringed octopus and the pufferfish for the deaths because they don't produce poisons. They're produced by bacteria. The blue-ringed octopus hosts them in its salivary glands, while the pufferfish gets them with food. So a captive-bred pufferfish following a different diet is safe, not poisonous. It's the bacteria that holds the title of most toxic creatures, not the reptiles or jellyfish. And so the absolute most toxic poison, the most dangerous poison on the planet, is in my pickle jar. What did Grandma put in that jar? Jars and cans with bloated lids harbor dangerous bacteria. Clostridium botulinum. Sounds like a spell. If you see such a lid, never eat anything from that jar or can. The bacteria inside it produce botulinum toxin, which can disconnect the muscles from your nervous system, including the ones you breathe with. If you manage to do the impossible and spray 2 to 6 pounds of pure botulinum toxin over the settlements, it would be enough to make all humanity stop breathing once and for all. Really? Really? And this substance is right in front of me in this jar. It's kind of creepy. Although, as you guessed, I double-crossed you again. Would I actually keep such a substance in front of me? Yes, I actually was going to be honest. We tried to buy one, but the sellers were like, "We don't have such jars. We only have fresh ones." They wrote in caps lock. Only fresh, so we didn't buy such a jar and decided to cheat a little. Botulinum toxin, Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Shorten it and you'll get Botox. Yes, that thing injected into the faces of all the stars and models in the world is actually poison. Its accurate doses temporarily disable the small muscles. They stop contracting, causing even deep wrinkles to smooth out, like on the faces of the deceased Bogdanov brothers, who turned their faces into Botox masks. So botulinum toxins are the strongest organic poison. And it's no wonder that there were numerous attempts to turn it into chemical weapons. But it's an extremely complicated substance. Look at its formula. There are thousands of atoms in one molecule. Plus, it's really difficult to obtain. So weapons are made from much simpler substances, like these. That is much simpler even visually, right? The first chemical weapon was nothing but a simple gas, chlorine, which the warring countries used in World War I. Chlorine, when inhaled, reacted with the moisture inside the lungs and turned into hydrochloric acid. It corroded everything. Although, on the battlefield, the forthcoming cloud of gas was visible from afar because of the green light, just like in this footage of modern tests. And if the wind changed, the cloud could cover your own soldiers. In addition, everyone soon learned how to deal with chlorine. They simply covered their faces with a wet rag soaked in water or urine. Later, the army was provided with gas masks, which were designed not only for people, but for horses too. But the weapons also evolved. At the very end of the war, people saw a new method of delivery, a shell with a new toxic agent, iperite. Its droplets are enough to hit the body or clothing so that the skin cells begin to self-liquidate. And finally, the king of chemical weapons was the paralyzing nerve agents. They were sprayed on the battlefield in the form of gas or droplets, small droplets. A liquid called VX disables muscles from neurons in the same way as botulinum toxin. It gets into the body through any organ and disables it. Although in the movie The Rock, VX for some reason was stored in fragile balls and burned the skin. Today, chemical weapons are banned. Moreover, modern chemical protection saves us from most poisons. And on the battlefield, it's not the most effective weapon. But some killers and terrorists still use them. Japanese sectarians filled the subway with sarin, the substance which killed Kim Jong-un's brother. A woman at the airport just threw a poisoned rag over his face. Here he is complaining to the cops about being dizzy. Half an hour later, he died on the way to the hospital. A whole class of Novichok neurotoxins developed during the Cold War are allegedly used by intelligence services. It's enough to put a minuscule amount of it on the skin, which makes it impossible to detect in the victim's body and prove its use. Okay, is there any other way to deal with such perfect poisons? Yes, for that you need such substances as antidotes. They may neutralize poisons by one of several methods. The first is to neutralize all the toxin floating in the body before it even takes effect. That's what activated charcoal does in the stomach, for example. Here's another example. How to save people who have been poisoned by cyanide? To give them the usual sugar, or rather, to infuse into their blood a 40% glucose solution so that it glues all the cyanide ions there. As a result, the poison will be glued and taken out. By the way, that's why if you eat those 150 seeds along with the apples, nothing will happen. The sugar inside the apple pulp will simply deactivate the cyanide. The second way is to occupy the poison's place on those receptors and enzymes it usually uses for evil purposes. For example, methyl alcohol poisoning is treated by ethyl alcohol. That is to say, in case you got poisoned with counterfeit vodka and almost went blind, you'll be cured by quality vodka. And finally, the third way is to neutralize the effect of the poison with another poison with the opposite effect. Yes, some of the antidotes are also poisons. For example, atropine. The poison women of the 16th century used to put on their eyes, today saves from Novichok. It's just that these two substances act in opposite ways on our bodies. Here's an example where the logic just rules. To prevent poisoning by batrachotoxin, the venom of dart frogs, people apply tetrodotoxin, the venom of octopuses and pufferfish. It's all explained very similarly. Dart frog venom blocks sodium between neurons, while the venom of the puffer and octopus, on the other hand, floods the cells with sodium. Minus and minus is a plus. Oops. It's not a forbidden sign, is it? No, it's okay. It's not a forbidden sign. I can show it. So if you touched a poisonous frog, then logically you should run and touch a blue-ringed octopus and eat a pufferfish. Just kidding. Better see a doctor. But against the poisons of predatory animals, spiders, snakes, and scorpions, there's no easy such solution because, as we remember, they contain a cocktail of different substances, of more than 100 of them. And to each one you have to pick a different antidote. A human being cannot do this, while a living organism, or rather the immune system in that living organism, can. It's capable of picking up antibodies. The snake or spider is forced to inject its venom into a container. This stuff is then injected into the body of a horse, for example. In a small dose, not a horse one. The animal will synthesize antibodies to the poison for 6 months and then share it with us, donating its plasma. This scheme has been used for 100 years. Nothing has changed. But alas, the antibodies don't stay in the body for long after a serum or bite. That's why, for example, vaccines also need to be taken every 6 months. The antibodies leave the body. In that case, why not let the snakes bite you all the time? Yes, that's damned dangerous, but such cases took place too. Bill Host survived no less than 173 bites from various snakes, and 20 of them almost killed him. The main word here is almost. For 60 years, he injected himself daily with a mixture of 32 snake venoms to keep up his antibodies. As a result, his blood used to be transfused more than 20 times to the victims as an antidote. Bill himself lived 100 years, but we don't know whether it was because he injected poisons into himself or not. But we do know that some poisons can be useful. Yes, what kills us in large doses, in small doses, can make us smarter and more resilient. But as they say, don't test it on yourself. Here's another reminder: leave that job to doctors and scientists. Although, sometimes, they succeed just by chance. In 1943, the Germans bombed an American ship loaded with ypirite. Hundreds of people were poisoned by it, and their blood contained a critically small amount of leukocytes. This was another proof that ypirite could also suppress broken blood cells in lymphoma and leukemia. Soon, this ypirite became the prototype for the first chemotherapy. Cancer patients are still being treated with real poisons. And this isn't the only example. If you examine poisons more deeply, you can find a molecule for almost any medical case. The bite of a snake with the funny name of jararaca lowers blood pressure, so its venom is used to synthesize a medicine for hypertension, captopril. You could see it in your grandparents' aid kits. The Genotoxins in the clams' cones inject into their victims suppress pain thousands times more effectively than morphine and are not addictive. Sea anemone venom is valuable because it hits only specific cells of the human body, T cells. This ability to hit T cells helps to pacify immunity in patients with autoimmune diseases like lupus. And finally, Botox not only helps turn celebrities' faces into wax masks, but also treats about 20 different disorders, from muscle spasms to overactive bladders, migraines, strabismus, and premature ejaculation. That's right, guys. Strabismus. So poisons are the most valuable substances that are found in nature, and literally, the most valuable liquid on the planet is nothing but poison. Deathstalker scorpion venom. Its price is $10,300,000 per liter. This is the cost of this private jet. The thing is, this substance has to be collected drop by drop, while the demand for it among scientists is gigantic. After all, there's a whole pharmacy hidden inside. Chlorotoxin alone can make immune cells hit exactly in a brain tumor. That's what I like about humans. We can take advantage of even the most horrible things. One drunkard and co-founder of pharmacology, Paracelsus, said something like this: all substances are poisons. There is none which is not. The dose differentiates a poison from a remedy. So, always control the dose